What's more mind-blowing than the Twitter files revealing government censorship through social media and the collusion between the intelligence community and social media apps? What's even more shocking than that is the way people are being propagandized to ignore it. It's unbelievable.
It's a big nothing burger.
It's a big nothing burger. Oh, he's just cherry picking. And it's like, what is wrong with you? I know what's wrong with them. They're propagandized. They want to censor. People who vote for Democrats, I'm telling you, they enjoy censorship because they think they're censoring their enemies. That's why. They think they're censoring Trumpers and MAGA. That's who they think they're censoring. In reality, they're censoring anybody who's against the establishment. Anybody who has a counter narrative to the establishment, no matter how many awards you've won as a scientist, or no matter if you're the leading cardiologist in the country, no matter if you invented the mRNA vaccine technology, you will be censored if you step outside the cult. And now people are ingesting this. People are not fighting back against this, and it's becoming part of their mentality.
If a job says it's a fast-paced environment, it usually means many people quit. But look on a bright side. You won't need to remember your coworkers' names, as they will be gone soon.
Ladies, please teach your daughters that even if he's crying and threatening to hurt himself, motherfuckers still love.
If someone does this to you, the first thing you should do is ask their location and alert them that you're sending an ambulance. If they've sent you a text message, screen cap it and send it to their close friends and family so they will have support around. That way, if they're actually going to follow through, they get the help they need. But if they're being manipulative, which 9 times out of 10 it is in this situation, they're going to have to explain some really uncomfortable things to people around them, and they're going to get a reality check, and they're going to be held accountable for their behavior, especially if an ambulance comes around and they have wasted the ambulance service time. They may even get fined. But it also means that you are no longer responsible or liable because you have done your due diligence. And you know what? They'll stop doing it after you do this to them, because they cannot deal with that at all.
We're just some motherfucking losers. Projecting, calling people groomers. When really we're just racist trash. We're just fucking racist trash. That's why we got this Nazi flag. That's why we wave a Nazi flag. I am a Nazi, my life is pathetic. I suck ass. I wish that my mama had never got pregnant. I'm white trash. My whole life is something that I regretted. To be a loser, I just got a fetish. I'm an adult, but my bed I still wet it. We hit ourselves and that's why we project it. We're unoriginal, just check the aesthetic. My name is Chris Polis, you know I'm a dweeb. I rep that white power, you know that's my team. Nobody can be bigger loser than me. I am king fucking doofus, I'm reigning supreme. Somehow I think that I'm cool and I'm hard, but after this I'ma go cry in my car. Emotionally scarred, I'm a loser for sure. At least all of my homies are matching their shirts. Word. Can we speak to your manager, dog? We acting like Karens, we actually saw. We get off on that little havoc we cause, cause we know that we really don't have any cause. Please give me props, I want round of applause. I am so insecure, I don't have any thoughts of my own. I'm just a mindless drone, for sure. We're just some motherfucking losers. We're some motherfucking losers. Projecting, calling people groomers. Calling other people groomers. When really we're just racist trash. We're just fucking racist trash. That's why we got this Nazi flag. That's why we wave a Nazi flag.
My friend, don't be Nazi. Very bad thing to be, don't be Nazi. Nazi is trash, is synonymous. Nazi and trash, similes. Nazi and trash is equal. Don't be Nazi.
The city of Philadelphia just sent out a mass text
to the 1.5 million residents of Philadelphia, informing everyone to start using bottled water instead of drinking water from their taps because there has been a latex pipeline leak in a river that connects to the Delaware River, where everyone in Philadelphia gets their drinking water from. Over 8,000 gallons of latex material, similar to the same material that was in a train that exploded in East Palestine, Ohio, has now been leaked into the drinking water of the residents of Philadelphia. The birthplace of freedom now does not have water that it's sure enough that people can drink. And I only know about this because my friends who live in Philly sent me a screenshot of the text that they were sent. I then tried to go to the Philadelphia Inquirer's webpage to read about it, but that's behind a paywall. Luckily, I was able to go to our local PBS affiliate to find out more information. I myself am not affected by this. I don't live in the city of Philadelphia. I live in an outlying suburb, and my water comes from a different area. However, a lot of my friends live in Philadelphia. 1.5 million Americans live in Philadelphia, and they are currently unsure of the quality of their drinking water. The government has said that they honestly don't quite know, but they're being cautious, so just, get bottled water. But 1.5 million people are now looking for bottled water. 1.5 million people. But yeah, it's TikTok that we need to be having congressional committees about. Sure thing, guys. Great system we got going here.
This is a methane digester, and it's my favorite system here at our land lab. It gives us 2 hours of cooking fuel a day and gives us liquid fertilizer, and we no longer have to rely on store-bought gas. We first start by filling it up with 1,200 liters, or 317 gallons, of water. We then add cow manure, which gives it anaerobic bacteria. Once the initial setup is done, we then add 1.5 gallons of food scraps a day. That can be anything from vegetable scraps to bones. The best input, though, are starches. The bacteria then breaks down all the organic matter that we put inside of it. This creates natural methane. The methane collects in the top bag, but first it goes through a carbon filter, which takes care of the odor. To pressurize the methane gas, sandbags are built into the system to weigh it down. We can now turn a valve on, which will send the methane to our cooktop stove. The 1.5 gallons of organic waste gives us 2 hours of cooking fuel a day. Everything else that's not turned into methane is turned into liquid fertilizer, which we give to our plants. This system helps prevent 6 tons of CO2 emissions a year.
Things are getting dark real fast. And we on a crash course, so there's no stopping it. History has to do what it's supposed to do. But if you anything like me, I'll let you in on a little secret about times like this. The late great Toni Morrison already told us what we're supposed to do in these times. She said this is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, and no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That's how civilizations heal. And with these nights being dark and full of terrors of the straight white Christian variety, because they're the ones that's doing the most right now. Looking at you, Ron DeSantis. That's exactly what we gotta do. If you have the gifts, talents, and ability to do art, write, and speak, and think, and do reckless things, your number's being called, baby. It's time to get to work. Them folks need us.
You told me you were interesting, but you're literally always in bed. I'm into resting.
Sophilene Chem-Shapiro was performing a sacred dance at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in front of statues that were stolen from her home country of Cambodia. until a security guard approached her, interrupted her prayer, and instructed her to stop dancing and put her shoes back on. Soon after, the podcast crew she was with attempted to interview her on the steps of the museum, but the security staff told her they were not allowed to be there and had to leave the entrance to the Met. This comes just after a new study revealing that the museum still has over 1,000 items that once belonged to notorious art smugglers. Many of the items were linked to Douglas Latchford, who was revealed in 2020 to have taken advantage of genocide and civil war in Cambodia to sneak sacred objects out of the country, suggesting that although the Met Museum has begun repatriating some items to Cambodia, there may be many more to go. Tim Shapiro writes that I was stopped from acting out the very purpose for which these statues were created speaks directly to the reason why Cambodia is demanding their return from the Met. These artifacts belong in the temples from which they were looted.
Alright, player, that's the dragon's turn. What are you gonna do? Alright, cool. At 9th level, I'm gonna cast a Ooh-Woo. 9th level, what? You heard me, DM! 9th level spell Ooh-Woo! Okay, what does this spell do? Target creature must roll a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they have to speak in an Ooh-Woo voice for 1 hour, DM. Okay, alright, where the hell did you get that spell? The internet. Okay, that's it. No more homebrew spells for you. If you don't want me to cast that, DM, I can always cast 9th level spell, E-Girl on the dragon. No, we're not gonna cast a spell. Alright, let me just roll real quick to see what we get. That's a natural one. You know what you must do, DM. I don't know if I have the strength, player. Do the voice, DM. No, you can't make me! You fail the spell saving throw, DM. Do the voice.
Ooh, woo, it looks like you guys are gonna be in big trouble once I get my hands on you. Don't worry, I have my big old fire breath, owa, to knock you guys down so I can be a big girl and destroy all of you. Owa.
William, knife man.
Incoming transmission.
Red alert! All hands to battle stations!
Come on, man.
Bonjour. Ooh, wow. Anyways, Joey Peltier and Dijnika. Oh, no. No. Can you guys hear me okay? It's a little bit loud on my end. Alright. Bonjour, Joey Peltier and Dijnika, Makadewa, Maka Indunjanaba, Mikanakwa, Jiji, Nini, We, Bijigamag. Today is Friday, March 31st, 2023. Welcome to the 13th episode of our show. Me, Gwidge, for joining me. I am back. It's been too long. I am back. 3 weeks after 3 weeks and not doing a show. I've been pent up. I have a lot to talk about, and I don't think today's show is long enough. I only made 3 segments. You know, we only have an hour today, but you know, we're here. It is gorgeous out, and when I say gorgeous, the sun may not be out. We have an overcast, but boy, is it like 32, 33 degrees outside, melting. Love it. It was beautiful getting off of work today on time. Love that. If you guys have been watching or following my Facebook page. You know, it's been a little rough the last couple weeks here in the Peltier Upagard residence and Upagard Peltier, excuse me. And, you know, I just needed a moment to get a lot of stuff done and get caught up. Oofta. February hits me like a rock. March is just like a tornado. Oh, but we're here. It is the end of our week, and oh my gosh, I am so glad to be back, folks. You know, I do this because I actually like talking. I do this because I like getting information out and educating my peers, my community members, and then opening up those dialogues for our community to actually grow and become healthier people together. Today it's just me. I reached out to Gina. She might pop on a little bit later to do some production work, but really, honestly, we're keeping a low tech day. It's a Friday, you know. I didn't really want to get too deep on crafting the script for today and the slideshows. So we are not doing any slideshows today. I'll have a beautiful show scripted out on Monday for everybody. But let's start it out. You know, for folks that have noticed the recent changes in our main branding for the network, from my initials EJOP3 to Counting Coup. This change came from months of brainstorming, waiting to move away from a brand that feels like mine to a decolonized branding that relates to all of us, to ours. You know, over the past 500 years of Indigenous resistance, to my relatives across the plains, we know Counting Coup as an old term for boons of a victory in a battle that didn't result in death. And we mostly use the term now for a manner that is related to acts of nonviolent resistance and peaceful resistance. And in that manner, the goal of the brand is to bring awareness of Indigenous resistance, sovereignty, and the decolonization work around us and ahead of us. Generational resistance of an ongoing erasure of the Native American cultures and genocide of our people, of these and of us, of our people, and of the sovereign nations of North America. Despite Disney's racist whitewashing of Pocahontas, a Potawatomi young woman amongst the start of our MMIW that was 427 years ago, later now is still one of our main primary ways to slaughter our people. The long game evolved well over the past 150 years of taking our children with American policies of kill the Indian and save the man. The genocidal impact of American residential boarding schools, land theft and blood quantum of the Dawes Law, and now using the courts for fossil fuel companies to set up the president to challenge the legal relationship between the United States and the 574 inland Native American countries. Weaponizing legislation that was originally fought for to protect our children to be changed into attacking our families, cultures, and nations. As previously covered here, Bracken v. Holland, U.S. Supreme Court case, whose Dakota Access legal firm, along with a small wealthy group of people, afforded to set out such a huge and draining legal battle over siblings, now toddlers, new toddlers, preschool age to, now, or actually infant age to now young preschoolers. Oofta. Then began when the tribes intervened with a long-term family from the tribe. Long-term legal battles are nothing new, as in engagements over 5 centuries have allowed for diversity of tactics through many different routes to spread us thin, just like they did to us during Line 3. They learned from the past very fast. For instance, Standing Rock, 4 years later, now on to Line 3 to Line 5, and 100 of current projects near and impacting tribal ceded lands. Just recently, the Alaskan Willow Project only received a week of coverage from a year-long siege of us battling Manchin's dirty deal to protect against the Mountain Valley Pipeline and the deadly Cop City in Georgia where we land today. As reported through various media outlets, Tortugula, an indigenous Venezuelan who was also queer and non-binary, was a forced offender who was killed during a SWAT operation January of this year in camps set up in response to the indigenous land where the infamous Cop City is to be constructed outside of Atlanta. The autopsy reports for Tortugula released this month show how they were barraged by mace pellets. Tort had his hands up when officers unleashed a series of lethal rounds into their body. In the state-sanctioned murder, as our country scrambles to cover their politically motivated assassinations of Tort. For those who are unaware, Cop City is a multi-acre, multi-billion campus to militarize law enforcement in a long game learn tactics to be used against we the people. Not just we the indigenous people, but we the American people. Such tactics learned from direct battlefields that hired military contractors condensed and commodified that information for domestic use. Those same paramilitary contractors who were employed or are employed by foreign and domestic extraction companies that developed engagement and arrest plans for Minnesota police officers to target local community Line 3 leaders using prominent relationships in the big business sector to obtain private online data obtained through and by social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, and also TikTok. A topic we will further discuss later in the show. These tactics of media dominance, narrative control, and malicious information, along with insurgent demonstrations designed to allow for misinformation to paint a peaceful event as riot-like actions. Last month, Dark Clothes Squad arrived at the Forest Protector Musical Festival, causing property damage, setting fires and fireworks off as cops sat back and then later violently raided the festival and their attendees. We all told you when the 3rd Precinct went down in flames that it was majority infiltrators, agitators, and the actual police doing these property damage destructions. And later on, as journalists and far later on as the courts reinforce our narratives backing up these known facts. Manuel Perez Turan, known as Tortugula death, is an alarming sign on how deadly they will continue their long game of power, wealth, and control. Again, their recent autopsy reports show that he was murdered with their hands up. 14 death shots. His crime? Upholding indigenous sovereignty. I'm not inclined to believe in an organization that ought to be held responsible for 100 murders a month. Every dang month last year, we had 100 murders by the hands of our police officers, totaling out to be 1,176 murders that could be dug out of reported databases. Not that includes the cops who are accountable for a portion of our MMIWR numbers. Oh. We carry ourselves with good hearts in a good place. We walk peaceful, nonviolent, and they are fucking around and they're about to find out. We are not going to be intimidated. Respect us or expect us. Oh, we are peaceful, nonviolent. Folks, breathe, and just keep organizing, keep resisting. You know, that was a quick one. but it was heavy. Tort was murdered protecting Indigenous sovereignty. The issues around Cop City are to build and to tear down, to build up the, oh man, sad. Cop City is there to manhandle us. It's there to murder us. They're building this, in short, to continue on this ongoing genocide, not of just the Indigenous communities, but also our minority communities and our white labor class communities. We have to remember that we must stand in solidarity, and not solidarity just because it needs to be done, but solidarity because we love one another. We are a melting pot here in the United States. You know, that means that we come from all different cultures and all different backgrounds. Me, myself, I'm a third Indigenous, I'm a third French, and I'm a melting pot of European nations after that. And we have to remember that in the long run, we are all related to one another. So breathe, take a moment, and I'll be right back after this short break. I need to grab some coffee.
A North Dakota lawmaker caught sending an explicit photo of himself to another man. Republican Randy Baining, who has never officially come out of the closet, is now speaking out about the incident. He says he thinks he knows who did it after a federal employee vowed to out him as gay if he continued to vote against bills granting legal protection for the LGBT community. Justin Smith spoke out to local news saying he has recognized Baining from a newspaper article voting against the anti-discrimination bill and from the gay dating app Grindr using the name Top Man. Smith says Baining sent him sexually suggestive messages as well as a photo of his penis. According to Fargo newspaper Inforum, Baining has acknowledged he is Top Man, but says he doesn't think sending a graphic photo of himself to a stranger is a lapse in judgment because that's what Grindr is for.
Native American activist Leonard Peltier has spent over 40 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Prosecutors and federal agents manufactured evidence against him, including the so-called murder weapon, hid proof of his innocence, presented false testimony obtained through torturous interrogation techniques, ignored court orders, and lied to the jury. People are commonly set free due to a single constitutional violation, but Leonard Peltier is innocent and faced with a staggering number of constitutional violations, has yet to receive equal justice. Let Joe Biden know that you support granting clemency for Leonard Peltier. Data has shown that an excellent way for Peltier supporters to communicate to the White House is by telephone call. The White House comment line is at 202-456-1111, or you can mail to the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20500. Also, sign the petition to free Leonard Peltier at bit.ly/free Peltier. Free Leonard Peltier today. Oh.
Just a friendly reminder that I am not evolved. I am evolving, which means if you say something stupid to me, I will still be cussing your ass the fuck out. Stay smart.
I'm evolving. I'll get to the point where things will just roll off my back. But at the moment, I'm still evolving. Watch yourself. Love that. Love it. Hey, yo, folks, welcome back. What did you think of the last segment? Share your thoughts in the chat. Say hello. Where are you watching out of? It is great to be back. I am doing and doing this show. I enjoy doing it. It is giving me a sense of growth. I'm working on multiple different skills that I've taught myself over the last decade, and it's great. When Gina and I and a few others within my inner circle discussed the brand change, I wanted to emphasize, R to the enterprise. Yet I let my imagination go wild for a little bit, and that always turns out to be, your heart leads you into a good way. Much of my friends and organizing is volunteer. Much of my friends and my organizing is volunteer and on our own dime. We are a rural community here in Bemidji, and it's not like we have thousands of people that are willing to donate, or even that we have those donations accessible from the smaller population in our community. An organizer has to be aware and honor those donations more, as there is a smaller limit that is spread thin across many different organizations, movements, and charities. I dream that in a 10-year goal, it is my dream to potentially build up like an audio video community center, with multiple rooms for recording, photography, and of course, live cast for podcasts or live streaming for podcasts. Those studios, along with a huge, large room for a coffee shop with a stage, and we'll have open mic nights, small comedy shows, and a venue for local bands. I'd like to put a video studio with glass walls so I can watch the front and live stream the events that are going on for all of you. That is my 10-year goal. I'd teach classes monthly, pretty much on the basics: video software, sound software, and graphic editing. I'd like to, find funding for a small community computer lab, so our members or day pass guests can collaborate on projects and learn from one another. A small team to help with daily operations, and the coffee shop, of course. I'm lucky enough to have my husband, Tyler, who, is sitting on a 5-year degree with information technology, so he can help set up and, deal with those tech solutions that are needed. We saw before I started the show that art will surpass this great evil. That this black snake, art feeds the soul, it feeds our hearts. And I like to build this infrastructure for our community, an audio video community center. That's my 10-year goal. It's changed after a year or so, after really defining what I want in my basic home life. And then I thought about it. I was like, why buy all this cool tech and not share it with, my friends, my family, and the community, and then also share the knowledge on how to use it. We'll get it done. Moving forward. Did you know there are 340 anti-LGBTQIA bills across the nation here in the United States this year? Politicians on both sides are trying to make this a states' rights issue, where identity playing politics invokes religious dogma and misinformation on who's dealing what altar boy or underage cult sister wives, not our drag queens. Well, they split the hairs on rights and authoritarian practices that are strangely against their primary political beliefs, that the government should stay out of our fucking business. Republican zealots and sheeples alike flooding councils and boards as low as the library, school, county, township, and city councils. Banning books, school courses, drag shows, and even adult shows like the Minot Girls Night Out strip show this month. Of course, let's pull it out again, notably our drag shows. Legislation at the state level to repeal already implemented rights protections that were meant to enshrine in law queer rights protection policies being removed by deplorable and genocidal state-sanctioned murderers, and similar to what is happening to our women's rights in Republican-owned state legislators. Policies that include death penalty for women who are attempting to have an abortion, or LGBTQIA members of our community who are out in the open. We've seen these tactics play out in our global history, as TikTok trends incite how Hitler first went after the transgendered Germans. Hitler being the most attributed person to the casualties of Germans and all of the communities in Europe around that time. For the last decade, our Black trans women have been the highest murdered rate here in the United States. It's damn cold-blooded murder of our trans people in the queer community that have been one of the most underrepresented members in the rainbow flag, those being our Black trans women. It's not whether I believe that these actions will result in death or these policies. The stats are consistently climbing over the last few decades. The International War Tribunal should have enough data and first-hand accounts to charge most of these crusty-ass old politicians that have been sitting in these seats for decades, waiting to repeat a cycle of hate to distract us from cross-party organizing. If something American historian Thomas Frank writes about in Listen Liberal, or even the People Know, is as far back as including his book, What's the Matter, Kansas, is that the long game is repetitive and ever-evolving, created by the establishment institutions to control us through tactics of media manipulation and propaganda. Noam Chomsky, a famous author and auditorian, if I said that right, excuse me. He warned us back in 2017 how the playbooks have been written, published, and taught globally. From the Southern Strategy to the current tours that Steve Bannon has been on, public speeches across authoritarian economic countries, spreading ultra-far-right nationalist techniques of colonization. As we have an uprising of global actions involving Nazis, like a coup in Germany, actions and public events in Ukraine and even Australia, and of course here back at home in the United States. Speaking about the United States, our Jim Crow laws and the indigenous genocide inspired much of what Hitler's atrocities amounted to. U.S. nationalist organizations trying to invoke those same Jim Crow era and dogmatic power and control laws over our body autonomy, gender, sexuality, and relationships. The last thing our struggling youth need is to be tied up to a hateful identity politics and more old white men thinking about their personal lives. It's creepy as all fuck. These attacks and wars on our community are dividing our nation. And folks, I'd rather have a class war against the rich than a civil war against our family, neighbors, and loved ones. Earlier this week, I was told in class, we should be happy for anyone finding love and hope that they have healthy relationships. This was by our instructor, Anna Goldtooth, in our Anishinaabe Sexual Knowledge Keepers course through Planned Parenthood. And both of our Ask instructors, Tamika Jo and Anna, will be speaking at the Bemidji International Transgender Day of Visibility, a solidarity event here in town today at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Paul and Babe statues Arnold Dole who is a local leader and accomplished public speaker, notably around Indigenous Two-Spirit history and practices, is also slated as the keynote speaker. Two-Spirit, for folks that don't know, is an Indigenous term for Native Americans who have both the masculine fire and the more feminine water, as both the water and the fire wane and flow within that person. The International Transgender Day of Visibility and Solidarity event here in Bemidji can be found on Facebook and will be shared on our Facebook page. Each year on March 31st, the world observes the Transgender Day of Visibility to raise awareness about our transgendered people. It is a day to celebrate the lives and contributions of the trans people, while also drawing attention to the poverty, discrimination, and violence that these communities face. The International Trans Day of Visibility was created in 2010 by trans advocate Rachel Crandall. Crandall's the head of the Transgender Michigan. Created this event in response to the overwhelming majority of media stories about transgendered people being focused by violence. She hoped to create a day where people could refocus on celebrating the lives of transgendered people, empowering them to live authentically while still acknowledging that due to the discrimination, not every trans person can or want to be visible. Given that the minority of Americans say they personally know someone who's transgendered, the vast majority of the public learns about trans people from the media. This is a problem because, as shown in Netflix documentaries Disclosure, the media has misrepresented, mischaracterized, and stereotyped trans people since the invention of film. These false depictions indisputably shape the culture understanding of who trans people are and have taught the public how to react to and treat trans people in their lives. It's going to take a lot of work to undo the harm caused by these depictions. However, the society is becoming more accepting as trans people feel increasingly comfortable and confident being public and fully themselves, and media representation of their lives begin to improve. This is especially apparent in the generational familiarity of trans people. According to Gallup, while only about 30% of general American public say they personally know a trans person, that percentage drastically varies when segmented by age. For example, 19% of Americans over 65 claim to know someone who's trans, while 50% of Americans under the age of 30 have a transgendered friend or family member. This isn't surprising when taken into account that about 1 in 5 Gen Z adults identify as LGBTQIA, according to a Gallup poll in 2022. But there is also a growing backlash from anti-LGBTQIA activists who are targeting trans people, especially children, since marriage equality for same-sex couples was achieved in 2015. In 2023, as I covered earlier, there's over 400 anti-LGBTQIA bills that have been filed so far, with over half specifically targeting trans people, particularly our youth. Both in 2021 and 2022, we saw, a massive increase in anti-trans legislation. This anti-trans hypervisibility harms all trans people who are being demonized and scapegoated by politicians and in many media outlets. That's why it's still necessary for trans people to be seen through authentic, diverse, and accurate stories which reflect the actual lives and experience of trans people, both for themselves and for those people who believe they've never met a trans person, like myself. This includes the news media, where too often trans voices are missing from coverage of anti-trans laws and policies affecting their lives. Without trans people, experts weighing in, and without trans representation in newsrooms to help guide coverage, anti-trans discrimination is often misrepresented in the news as a culture clash and just asking questions rather than a willful misinformation and targeted hate. We are starting to see progress in film and TV, but we still have a long way to go. While representation of TV characters has significantly improved over the last years, as the Trans Day of Visibility 2023, there are 42 regular and reoccurring characters appearing on broadcast, streaming, and cable services. However, these 42 characters cannot possibly represent the full diversity of the trans community, nor undo 100 years of misinformation, inaccurate, and harmful representation. That is why this year we are supporting the Trans Day of Visibility, and we are partnering up with folks within our community to organize this event today. As I said earlier, the event will be at 4 to 6 p.m. here in Bemidji at Paul and Babe, along with across the nation and across the globe, as this is an international event. Come out and show your solidarity for our most vulnerable in our community, and help make a stand for a healthy and safe community. And that starts with the most in need, and that's our transgendered family members here in Bemidji. I hope to see you there. Bring a sign, dress appropriate for our weather. It might get a little bit chilly. If you folks can, excuse me. When you can't understand your own writing, if you can, folks, it is a heavy show today. Oh, okay. Let's center ourselves for a moment. All right. I want everyone to put your heads down, close your eyes, focus on your breathing. Like I said, it is a heavy show today. You know, the snow was falling slow and thick with heavy flakes 2 days ago. It is a crisp, cool day outside. Slow yourself down. Breathe. Little self-care. Okay. Keep doing self-care. I'll be right back after a short moment.
I don't really want to do the work today. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't want to do the work today.
It's okay to not know what you want. It's okay not to have some all-encompassing purpose or passion. There's no such thing as lost. That's just living. You can change direction anytime you want. Everything's made up. The timeline doesn't exist. The right way to do things doesn't exist. Your destiny is to not be a shitty person and to try to have some fun. You're here. That's all you need to be. And you know you better keep it up, cutie. Because I'm so freaking proud of you.
Oh. Let's see, what do we have in our chat? Good morning, Jesse. Grand Rising, and welcome back, Anne. I'm sorry I haven't had a show in a couple weeks. I'm glad to see that you're in our chat again. And oh ho, my husband, who is at work and probably just popped on for a moment. I love him. He's a great man. We are flying through today's show. We're going to end up a little bit early today. Okay. Well, let's give it a go. Songs made less than a decade ago. Are we sure? Songs made decades ago. When Martin Luther King walked and marched with our communities. The revolution will not be televised. How do you feel about free speech overall? It feels like over the past few years, the Democratic Party has been more pro-censorship and less of a vanguard or a steward for freedom of speech. If you are for or against the health-related censorship we've had over the last few years, over masks and other things, making us that we can't have conversations due to, Facebook and YouTube, Google, congressional presser, and policy. Heck, I can't even talk about what I'm trying to talk about right now without having to code it. Well, reporters like Julian Assange should be a tabletop name here in America if we had a fully functioning democracy. If we had a functioning press. A press that the people wouldn't have to rely on foreign media outlets to handle whistleblower content over governmental monstrous and murderous actions, yet we are all complacent as we have elected these folks. These officials who penned up Julian to a lifelong sentence and a slow, torturous death. Julian comes from an era of the free internet. Mr. Assange knew what free internet meant. It wasn't the wild, wild west, but actually free of commodification. The long lost words of freeware, free share, and open share, where as the creators understood that the internet would be an essential public good. Not that this predatory capitalist globalization effort, with their tactics that the rich have waged on the working class, predating capitalized colonization, the capital colonization came to this continent, predating the capital colonization that came to this continent. Oofda. Those wealthy global citizens we all call the CEOs of these mega rich companies have seen how the internet offered aid and knowledge to the world's unstable nations, providing many ways to survive and resist. Those CEOs adapted for the internet. Current tactics of gaslighting us over TikTok as a major theme is to scaremonger against the historical racial tactics of, the scary boogeyman of China. As the common unknown knowledge of what data that Facebook and Twitter collects, I feel it's safe to say that most of us blindly click that user end agreement, allowing them to harvest our data. We later find out that Zuck sold your information to foreign nations to help companies make dossiers of our community leaders to use to invade and place a ticking time bomb. I'm talking about Canada and Enbridge Line 3 there. But yeah, back to TikTok. Even though through Congress is painting legislation as it's solely targeting China-related business TikTok. The legislation lays Patriot Act level personal information collecting and prosecution of the like of highly governmentally surveillanced people like China being brought home to here in the United States. Expanding the scope targets to whom is the greater evil. Our current advisory nations on this legislation are indicated as China, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Venezuela under Maduro, specifically calling out Maduro after Trump's administration failed coup. Amongst the legislation, it points out that VPNs, those lovely cool apps that hide your IP, your internet protocol addresses, are also known as your internet router address, allows for prosecution if the user is found to be linked to those nations, a conviction that could sit up to 20 years or $1 million fine. With a presidential appointed Secretary of Communication and Board, this legislation gives no oversight for our censorship. Completely encrypted board behind closed doors allows meetings to censor our citizens without oversight or citizen input. When I said Patriot Act level surveillance, what I mean is they can watch your home cameras, your Ring doorbell cameras, Roombas, digital thermostat information, your video games, live streaming applications like I'm on today, virtually anything that accesses the internet. You should be concerned. You need to contact Senator Klobuchar and Senator Smith and tell them no to S686. No to S686. Tell them that we need across the board basic consumer data protections, that the internet and use of the public good and applicable to constitutional speech protections and regulations. Such oversight should be done nonpartisan with a complete transparency. Remind the left that we are the stewards of free speech, that we are the stewards of free internet. Also that we need to free Julian Assange. We also need to free our elder Leonard Peltier. Contact information will be shared on our network page to reach out to Senator Klobuchar and Senator Tina Smith. But for now, folks, I'll be right back. Smash that like and share button. Zuck needs to know that you like me.
One of the toughest times to communicate is when you're working on a project together.
Yeah.
We're putting a composter together. I am someone who has to read all the directions, and someone I love dearly likes to
Screw things in, but I don't have very much patience, so I just want to hurry up and get to it.
Through the years, we've learned that the key is when we do need to do things together. And honestly, as we get older,
Seasoned.
we do need to help each other, because I don't have the dexterity in my hands that I used to, even though I'm the younger one by 3.5 years. And this is Miss PE coach here. And so she is really good at putting things together.
I have dexterity. I just don't have any patience. Can't wait for a libation at the end of this project.
We did it. But we managed to put together a composter in, almost 3 hours? Because
the guy on the video did it in 14 minutes.
Right. Anyway, this is what it's all about.
Puff out your chest, take a deep breath, you're gonna be okay. Is it loud in your mind? Just take your time, you're gonna be okay.
So landlords have been really angry at me lately because I've been being mean to them, which is, pretty fair. And if you follow me for any period of time or even seen me on your page, it's kind of just like a little well-known, I'm a socialist, right? But this isn't just about my personal feelings. Even according to Adam Smith, the founder of capitalism, the landlord class is a leech. I'm going to read to you some choice Adam Smith quotes. As soon as the land of any country has all become private property, the landlords, like all other men, love to reap where they never sowed and demand a rent even for its natural produce. The rent of the land, therefore considered as the price paid for the use of the land, is naturally a monopoly price, is not at all proportioned to what the landlord may have laid out upon the improvement of the land or what he can afford to take, but to what the farmer can afford to give. Landlords are the only one of the three orders whose revenue costs them neither labor nor care, but comes to them, as it were, of its own accord and independent of any plan or project of their own. That indolence, which is the natural effect of the ease and security of their situation, renders them too often not only ignorant, but incapable of that application of mind. So this isn't simply about my personal feelings.
Ooh. I think, though, that cute couple in that first video is just such a heart-lifting, like, TikTok page to follow. Get a chance, follow them on TikTok. Okay, folks, so this is our end segment of the day, and just a little coverage of what we did today. We covered in our Indigenous segment, we covered the autopsy report from Cop City, the murder of Tortugulla. In our state and local section, we covered the International Trans Day of Visibility, and I'm going to throw it up on the screen right now. Here is the event, what it looks like for Bemidji. From 4 to 6, looks like we have 40 people that responded. Woot woot. 2 hours. And the description for the event says, we will be gathering together at Palm Bay to stand with our transgendered brothers and sisters across the U.S. on March 31st from 4 to 6 p.m. We'll have limited materials available to make signs to hold before the event. Guest speakers are Arnold Dahl talking on Two-Spirit LGBTQIA, and Anna Goldtooth and Tamika Jo Andy, Bemidji Planned Parenthood sex-positive discussions. There'll be an open mic opportunities for attendees to talk about their journeys, because we need more of those stories to put out the narrative that we are regular people like everyone else. Bemidji Pride will be selling Bemidji Pride 2022 merchandise from last year. It says $20 cash per t-shirt. All proceeds will be going towards the Bemidji Pride 2023 event. Oh, a little map where it's at. And bam. I hope to see everyone there. I'm going to catch a couple hours of sleep before I go. I also work tonight. It's my last day of the week. Oh, I can't wait to have a day off. I got Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. We'll have a bigger show on Monday. I'm trying a new format out. Monologuing. It was a little rough today. I think I did a great job, though, trying to get out as much information as possible, but it seems I need to tighten up just the script a little bit tighter so I can better relay what the topic is. I think that's what the issue today is, that I wasn't able to identify the topic strong enough in my monologues, and I want to hit that better next week. So hold me accountable to that, folks. Where are we on the script? I was gonna have Gina come on today and ask me a question. She has this cool card game. It's called, I believe, Let's Get Deeper. And the questions on the cards ask personal questions about your life, and some are, general questions, easy to answer, but there are some deep questions that have been asked. And I fell in love with this game when we did our winter solstice ceremony with Joe and Kaylee Morales here in town. It was awesome event, or awesome game to do, asking the folks that I had just met questions about their lives and who they are, and it helped facilitate, what questions could come next, and it helped make us grow a lot. So I wanted her to come on and pull a card out. I think we might be doing that on a regular basis at the end of our shows. Is she'll give me a good question to answer, and I'll just, raw it out. Raw! Oh, man. Like I said, it's been a crazy last few weeks. I've dealt with extreme adult issues. And putting myself in positions that, I never would have thought that I'd be in. And I know I'm being vague, but it's out of respect for family members who were the crux of these situations that, ultimately they tore down my mental psyche. Not the family members, but the situations themselves. So it was good to have 3 weeks off. I did get itchy though. I need to be back doing this. I love talking to y'all. I love that, we have a few solid viewers that are here with me on live. And then we have roughly about 75 folks that watch our show throughout the week. So we're doing pretty good starting out. This is I think this is our 5th month of doing the podcast. Oh yeah, and my mom's here this week. Yeah, I got Mom. She's been sleeping since she got here pretty much, and I don't know if she was up much last night because I was at work. Oh man, I hope everyone has a good morning. I hope I see y'all at at the event this evening. If you do come out, give me a hug. If you're not a hugger, give me a handshake or elbow bump. I love it. I love y'all. I'm going to end out 5 minutes early today. I hope that you have an amazing weekend. That if you're an organizer, you keep on organizing. If you're thinking about dipping your foot into the organizing world, come and ask me. I have a bunch of resources. I have a bunch of information I can give you. Or, just continue watching the show and get inspired. But until Monday, or until later on this evening, Gugawagman, Minawa, Gazagain, and Mino Gishiga. And that's a new one for the show. It's going to be a good day. Mino Gishiga. It's going to be a good day. Doksha, folks. Have a good one. Where is my button? There's my button.
I don't believe in a no-win scenario.
Wouldn't let that shit happen to me, though.
William Knife Man.
The fact is that I don't remember. Come on, man.
We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up. And change is coming, whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Oh, young warrior.
By your powers combined, I am Captain Planet.
Bye, have a great time.
What we're trying to say is that Trump got in office and he mentioned that there's a deep state. They're like, you can't say that. What are you doing? And when he said, hey, when they asked him, why are you leaving your troops in Syria? And he said, for the oil. They're like, you can't. Yeah. He goes, no, it's for the oil. No, it's for liberty. It's for helping the people. Yeah. No, it's for the oil. It's our oil. And so he let the cat out of the bag, and they can't have that. That's what he blew the whistle on what's actually going on. Our wars are for oil. Our wars are economic wars, just like what's happening in Ukraine. This is an economic war. We're trying to put a hurt and isolate Russia. We're afraid of Russia and their natural resources and their manpower coming together with Germany with their technology and their capital. And we've been saying that for decades. And so that's why we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And that's why this Ukraine war is happening. And people have no idea what's happening. And what's worse is they have no idea that they have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, that's the crazy.
Well, it's obvious that they don't want you to know the real history. They don't want you to know that when Germany was allowed to reunify, the promise from NATO to Russia was that we won't expand NATO. And then, of course, it did. I think there's 13 or something more countries that they put into NATO. And now they wanted to put Ukraine into NATO or threaten to do that. That would be like if Russia got into a military alliance with Mexico and they wanted to start putting military bases in Mexico. We wouldn't allow that. We wouldn't allow it. And just like what happened in Cuba with the missile crisis in the 60s, we wouldn't allow stuff like that. But we're doing that, and people don't want you to know that this NATO is not a defensive, it is offensive. This is a war that was started and provoked by NATO and the West. And so people don't realize that NATO has provoked this. In fact, there was a peace agreement in 2014. The CIA helped overthrow the Ukraine government. And then the people in the Donbass didn't want to go along with this coup government, right? Because the leader of Ukraine wanted to be friendlier economically with Russia instead of join like the European Union. And that they couldn't have that, right? So that's why they did a coup. And the people, the Russian speakers in the Donbass didn't want to go along with that coup. And so they kind of wanted to break away. Ukraine government started shelling the Donbass. And so they had a peace agreement called the Minsk Agreement. And that was supposed to give them independence. They were supposed to have their own elections and they were going to stop shelling them. They never did. They ended up killing like 14 or 15,000 people in the Donbass over the last 8 years. And now it's been revealed that that peace agreement was never real. Merkel, the former prime minister of Germany, just admitted that the only reason they did that peace agreement was to give Ukraine enough time to build up its military so when they finally did provoke an invasion, which is what they did, that they would have a military ready to fight Russia. And so people don't know this is what happened. Mm-hmm. And so they just think that one day Putin woke up and said, I want to go invade Ukraine because I'm a maniac. And they think that he's the bad guy. They think that he's acting rationally. We always knew he would do this. In fact, we were counting on him doing this. That's why we did what we did. And they don't know that Ukraine ramped up their bombing right before the war started last year. They doubled their bombing. They were really trying to provoke it, and they did. And they provoked it. And the Russia would rather have a peace agreement. And the rest of the world would rather have a peace agreement. Not NATO, not Joe Biden, not the military-industrial complex. And so the reason why the NATO's army is on the doorstep of Russia is because we moved, not Russia. And it's just obvious that we're the bad guys. The United States are the world's terrorists. We have 1,000 military bases. We have 400 military bases surrounding China since the Korean War. We just added 3 new military bases in the Philippines. They just announced 2 weeks ago. This is how all empires end. We're overextending militarily while we have people living under every bridge. People don't have health care, a living wage. Half the country can't afford a $500 emergency. 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck. 50% of wage earners earn $30,000 or less. People go bankrupt when they get sick in this country. We have homeless people everywhere, and that's because our government is 100% corrupted. It's the people think that it's corrupted like, oh, Joe Biden gave his kid a no-show job on a Ukraine energy board, or Donald Trump gave his kid a deal with the Saudi. No. That's regular corruption. I'm talking about 100%. Everything the government does, it only does it because of corruption. And that's the only way the wheels get greased is through corruption. That's why we can send $100 billion to Ukraine without any oversight, and we still won't send it to our own cities to fix our homelessness or our bridges that those homeless people are living under. We won't even fix our own goddamn country. So people don't realize that this is pretty much a banana republic. We're at the end. This is the end of this empire. We're basically Brazil with a couple of big cities that are keeping it afloat.
You think so?
Yeah.
You believe that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, when half the country can't afford a $500, this is what I like to say. What do you call a system that takes the richest country the face of the earth has ever seen and renders half of its population poor or low income? You call that a failed system. And that's what we're living in. And people think we're going to be able to vote our way out of this. What we have to do is get people in the streets. So when someone like AOC has 13 million Twitter followers and Bernie Sanders has, they're supposed to tell people to get in the streets, shut stuff down, protest, and take our government back. But they won't because they're part of the system. And that's what I'm trying to wake people up. It's worse off having people like Bernie Sanders and AOC in the Democratic Party in government, even though Bernie claims he's an independent. He's a Democrat. And why is it worse? Because it gives people the false impression that there's somebody actually fighting for you in government, and there isn't.
So okay.
And the only way you can have change and get people into the streets is when they lose faith in the system. And we have to get them, we have to disabuse them of the idea that there is somebody fighting for them in this system, and there isn't.
So if you